share.
It's live.
Okay, thank you. I don't know. It's a little bit of a test on that one, Zach. So maybe.
I
Okay,
think,
cool.
Maria, you can also mute everyone's microphone and put them on camera or not as well, if I understand, but the control panel can do, but I mean, maybe you don't need that.
Okay, so I think just one technical thing. Julian and Christian, please let me know about levels, yeah, because it's very difficult for me to hear from here whether or not people can hear. Okay, so just one technical thing before we start. There are many people here who probably, it's unfortunate that we're doing this presentation in English. We have had an offer to do some translation. My only concern is that if we do translation, it's going to slow things down a lot. So the other possibility is to try to kind of speak fairly clearly and slowly. I mean, not everyone on the panel, English is not the first language of everyone on the panel. We realize it's a problem. And then the other thing is, if people have specific questions, they can come with questions, and hay personas como Emanuel y Julián y Cristian que pueden ayudar con traducciones. Sí. Okay, that would be great. In that case, you'll need to stand up. When you do that, you'll need to stand up and just claramente. Okay, great. Okay, so let's make a start. So let me just say, formally, hello and welcome to everyone who's come to this panel on the live audio archive, which is what we call the shifting pool of live real-time sounds available on the internet. So this panel brings together perspectives and experiences over 3 years of collaborative work with live streaming sound, and it focuses in particular on the potential for a global open microphone network, that is a network relaying sounds in real time from specific places, to be developed as a resource for artists, researchers, activists, and others. And it focuses in particular on its ability to engage with the pressing concerns of this conference, namely around ecology, data, and environmental change. So we're joined by a number of experienced people from different parts around the world, and it's a pleasure to just go around and very quickly introduce people and welcome them. So I'd like to welcome, in the first instance, somebody that you probably all know who's with us here in Manizales at Unbalance in Colombia, who is, of course, Eric Leonardson from the World Listening Project. And we're joined from Estonia by John Gozinic. In London, we have Maria Papadomonoulaki, a co-founder of SoundCamp and the sound artist, and also in London is the sound artist Dawn Scarfe, also of SoundCamp. Zach Pop is joining us from upstate New York, and Shimotoko Daisuke of the Cyber Forest program at the University of Tokyo is in Tokyo. Jiyeon Kim, you're on Jeju Island, and Leah Barkley is joining us once again after her presentation earlier from Brisbane. So we'll have an opportunity to hear from all those people in due course. The way the presentation is going to work is a little bit restricted, but we're going to see what we can do with it. So each of us has up to 10 minutes to speak, and we're going to aim to keep a little bit under that. So if we stay under the 10 minutes, it creates a little bit of space for extra question and discussion. Un momento, por favor. Do you want to change the microphone? Okay, we're just having a discussion about translation facilities. Si te parece posible, por favor, podemos probarlo. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to actually use my 10 minutes to start with a short introduction to provide some context for this conversation, and to talk a little bit about the way that my arts organization, SoundCamp, where our work feeds into this, into what we're talking about here. So SoundCamp is an arts collective based in London, and we work with sound and place. And a way to make that rather bland comment a little bit more concrete is to look at this picture, which was taken in 1986 in a post-industrial site in South London.
Hola, 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 hola. Hola, hola, hola. ¿Ya?
So if we
Hola, 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 hola. ¿Ya?
If we look at this image and we listen to this audio, so this picture and the sounds that are playing out now, so our sense is that this is not the sounds of this place. But if we fast forward a little bit to the late 80s now and into the early 90s, and then if we jump to a pinhole photograph by Kai Lewis taken in 2015, these are all pictures of the same site from the same angle. And we can see that in that intervening period, there's now basically a mature forest, and there's also in the background the new financial district in London. And if we go into the forest, we immediately have the sense that these sounds are in fact the kinds of sounds that would come from this kind of a place. So this is Stave Hill Ecological Park in London, and we're listening very early in the morning to the sounds of a blackbird and a blackcap. So this place has become a biodiversity hotspot in the inner city. And we're listening to a bird that was almost certainly born here in the Rotherhithe Peninsula, and another bird, a small warbler, that has almost certainly arrived in the last few days from Africa. So we know that small birds arriving from Africa bring with them not only, as it were, their own songs, but the songs of many other birds that they sample from, up to hundreds, as the work of François Lemaire with the marsh warbler in Liège has shown. So we can talk about these birds, this little bird bringing with it a kind of a global songbook when it arrives in a post-industrial site in South London. So at SoundCamp we like to think about what happened between those two things. You know, how do we get from here to here? And long story short, it's to do with the intersection of two things. One is a sustained, very local, community-based, 30 years of community-based ecological action, and the other is the intersection with these very old flows of organisms and acoustic materials up and down the latitudes. And at SoundCamp, we're interested in how sound can help us understand and interpret and potentially gain leverage over those kinds of processes. So one way we explore that at SoundCamp is by organizing every year early in May a series of sound camps. So this is a quick run through. This is one in London. This is one in Chicago that Eric was at. This is in Dartington in South London. This is in Estonia, where Dawn and John Gozinic, we're going to be hearing from later, were both. This is Jiyeon and Gang-il sound camp from Jeju in South Korea. And here we are in Santorini in Greece, and back to London. So sound camps are a place where we invite people to go outside, sleep outdoors overnight, and get up very early on Sunday morning and go outside to listen to the Dawn Chorus on International Dawn Chorus Day. And it's also an opportunity to do workshops and various kinds of other exploration to kind of check out the ecology and the sounds of specific sites. So in addition to being listening places, the sound camps are also transmission points. So each sound camp sends a live audio stream in real time to the internet. It normally appears here on this map. So this map is becoming more and more familiar, I'm happy to say. This is a map of live audio streams pioneered and run by the fascinating sound project Locus Sonus at the art schools of Aix-en-Provence and Bourges. Each of these orange icons is a clickable link, which you can use to be able to listen to the sounds, as we will be doing in a bit. So wouldn't it be great if that, let's look again at that, wouldn't it be great if this map, right, had like loads more microphones on it? You know, there's only one microphone on the continent of Africa, and I set it up, right? So I mean, you know, think about that, right? So one piece of that puzzle is to design the equipment to send out the live audio streams. So this is a Raspberry Pi based Streambox that we collaborate with others on designing and building. It looks a bit like this. You plug it in, it has a USB connector, and it has a little microphone in point here. So here you can see a little bit better. These are the microphones that we built from the famous Primo EM172Z, an amazing affordable microphone capsule. And here's an installation in Arusha in northern Tanzania in collaboration with this eminent ornithologist James Wollstonecraft. And with the big data project called Jason at the University of Toulon. So we're using machine listening to try to hear migrants as they come through this garden of James Wollstonecraft on the slopes of Mount Meru in East Africa. So in addition to these streams on the map, there's also a bunch of other audio resources available elsewhere. For instance, there's a live hydrophone network hosted at Lido by the Polytechnic University of Catalonia in Barcelona. And there is a fascinating page called abilian.org where there's a whole bunch of very low frequency radios that relay sounds of electric incidents in the magnetosphere. And there's a whole kind of bunch of audio associated with webcams of various qualities. So some of it is overtly ecological in nature. It's aiming to use technology to explore new kinds of relationships with the non-human, with nature. And an example of that would be the extraordinary kind of, there's a live webcam of a bird cliff in the extreme north of Finland by Biotope at Hornoja, where you can hear kittiwakes calling all the time. It's an extraordinary feed. And there are other feeds that are kind of totally not interested in ecology that we sort of hijack for our own purposes. And when you put them all together, this is what we're calling the live audio archive. Yeah? This sort of shifting pool of materials that come and go. But they are all connecting these wormholes from place to place with the kind of compelling, but quite simple links of sound in real time. So once a year at the same time we do sound camps, we do Reveil. So from this reclaimed timber building, which is exactly on the site of the first picture that we saw, we set up a temporary radio studio, and we do a 24-hour broadcast that starts near here at by the Greenwich Meridian and goes round the globe for one Earth Day, following live audio streams, using some of the materials that we've talked about before, as well as special commissions. We use the high-speed network from the financial district to pull in the streams from all around the world. And then we mix them loosely together and put them in sequence and send them out to Wave Farm in upstate New York, from where there's a URL where they can be picked up by FM and net radio stations, as many people do. So a few things about, just a few points on Reveil before I stop, because I'm almost certainly over. This project responds to the simple experience of going outside and listening at daybreak. So the classic experience of that is that it's very quiet. Almost in some places silent, and you hear the first sound, sometimes of a bird, dropping into the quiet. And then tends to be a crescendo of sound, and before you know it, you're back into, in my experience, the muddy, everyday soundscapes of everyday life. But you're aware at the same time that moment, that kind of window, has moved west. So that the daybreak as a kind of mobile terrestrial phenomenon, or as a kind of piece of auto-destructive performance, is always moving. It's locally ephemeral, but it's globally continuous. And this is a kind of artistic response to that. Another thing that this project does, it links dispersed acoustic and ecological projects. So hey, there's an ecology park in London. There's an ecology park in Chiba Province, Japan. There's an ecology park in Jasper Ridge in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California. And who knew that, right? And when you kind of string them together, you get the sense that these could almost be considered as a kind of a common project, Even you could say, if you're feeling ambitious, a kind of acoustic society under wraps, in the way that Giorgio Agamben talks about the coming community. So one other thing to say, there's a couple more points, is that by listening at daybreak, you open a window onto what we sometimes call certainly a more polyphonous and a more democratic soundscape. So in general, human noises, so el ruido de los humanos es más bajo. And the sounds of other creatures tend to be louder. So there's more of a balance, and we sense a greater level of biodiversity that is often masked at other times. So the final thing is, it's good to have a date in the diary, right? So Reveil is an opportunity when people kind of all get together and work on this stuff to create a critical mass of work, which aspires to be a catalyst for expanding and diversifying the open microphone network as a resource for artists, researchers, activists, and others. Yeah. Okay. Great. So what we're gonna do here in the room is before we go on. So let me just say we have some thoughts on next steps, which I'm not going to do now. And as soon as we can, we're going to go to John Gozinic in Estonia. But we have an offer here to just do a summary of what I've just been said. So if we're okay to wait for a minute on that, that would be great if you could do that. And I just ask people on the panel for a little bit more patience. Gracias. Por favor.
Bueno, entonces, dado que varias personas no hablan completamente inglés, vamos a hacer un resumen acerca de lo que se ha dicho en la presentación. Básicamente lo que nos presentan es the same. Yeah.
No funciona.
Se está presentando un proyecto
Okay.
en el que se trata de avances en el que se pretende vincular avances tecnológicos con los medios naturales, porque se ha visto que en los medios urbanos hay mucha contaminación auditiva producida por el mismo ser humano. Entonces, se han tratado de encontrar campos con sonidos naturales para poderlos proyectar. Ustedes vieron que nos mostraron una serie de fotos que nos dicen que es la misma foto, que es una foto tomada en el mismo lugar, en el mismo ángulo, pero en diferentes momentos, para demostrar cómo ha crecido la contaminación auditiva y tecnológica en los medios supuestamente naturales. Después de eso, nos comentan que hay varios recursos en Internet para encontrar ese tipo de medios naturales vinculados con un sonido natural. Él nos mostraba también este mapa con varios puntos en el mundo en el que uno puede encontrar varias partes en la que no hay tanta contaminación auditiva o hay cero contaminación auditiva producida por el ser humano, y se está manejando el proyecto para estructurarlo de una manera global, de una manera más conectada. Por eso el título de la conferencia, tratar de conectar varias fuentes de recursos ecoacústicos. También se está mencionando que se han creado varias tecnologías y que se han tratado de mejorar las tecnologías que se tienen para poder conseguir espacios con mayor reducción acústica y con mayor reducción de contaminación acústica producida por el ser humano. Y también dice que hay estudios dedicados, 24 horas dedicados para poder proyectar estos lugares para proyectar estos sueños alrededor del mundo vía internet. Él nos menciona lugares como Japón o California, en los que han encontrado y tratado de resguardar lugares para protegerlos de la contaminación auditiva. Volvemos otra vez a la foto que él nos mencionaba, para evitar que estos lugares se contaminen auditivamente por proyectos humanos, por tratar de... No, sí, porque el humano, tratando de innovar, tratando de mejorar la tecnología, está produciendo mayor contaminación acústica. Entonces, la idea con este proyecto es tener estos conservatorios acústicos, esos conservatorios naturales, para poder proyectarlos en la página web que nos está mostrando. Gran. Sí, gran.
Y es también cuestión de investigar lugares donde seres humanos, sí, es también... Muchas gracias, y estoy de acuerdo, pero también se trata de lugares donde seres humanos y no humanos se encuentran, ¿ya? En combinaciones interesantes. So, no estamos solamente interesados en cómo son los burros de lugares salvajes, no sé, pero también en lugares de encuentro, ¿no? Sorry for my Spanish, but I just want to... ¿Va bien? Okay. Great. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. That's really good. Okay, so our next speaker from Estonia is John Gozinic, and just before I invite him, we invite him to speak. Let me just set the scene a little bit by playing a very short clip. So John, I'm not sure if you get a little bit of a flavor of this on the Hangout, but this is a recording from 2015 from Alampeja, a nature reserve in Estonia, where both John and in fact Dawn were at for Reveil SoundCamp in 2015. So what we might do, John, is just keep that maybe bubbling away a little bit in the background, and as long as it doesn't intrude too much. And I think you're going to say a little bit more about that project.
Yeah. Okay, so can you hear me?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, good. Buenas tardes a todos en la conferencia. Yeah. So maybe just a bit about me. My name is John Grzinic. I'm American, but I've been living in Estonia since 2003. I consider myself mainly a sound artist, but I work with different media. And I work together with my wife, Evelyn, and we run an artist-run art space here in the rural south part of Estonia, southeastern part. And I guess related to this project was why I also think it's quite important to join in, and why I feel strongly with and agree with a lot of what Grant was saying before about I think observing and perceiving changes in the environment. That actually my moving here affected me quite strongly. I had always had a strong interest in being outdoors because I'm an active sound recordist, but it wasn't until I moved here that actually I realized, I guess, somehow the power or the feeling you get to really be connected not only to a place but to I guess an ecological system, and it's maybe something particular here to this location, but I can go not too far from here and be in a rather deep forest, and I just found myself listening a lot more to the environment, not just being a sound recordist interested in collecting sounds, but being an active observer in a real-time environment that changes constantly throughout the year. So at this time, in early spring, starting I guess around early to mid-April, the entire country wakes up from the slumber of winter, and really the first thing you start to hear are the first migrations of birds coming in, just as the last frosts are happening. And it's really, for me, it's the sound of life. It's like a system coming back alive after kind of going to sleep for a number of months, and I see this actually happening to different people, not just myself who come and visit. So when Dawn and Jiyeon came here for the first time, I remember them going into the forest, and it was actually October, and there was an expectation that the forest would be full of sounds, and I think Jiyeon remembers this, and they came back and they said, wow, it's really quiet. Said, yes, it's not the time of year. So I slowly started to realize over the years really the specificity of sound as it plays into the unfolding events of springtime and the general ecology of the different environments. So I guess relating maybe more specifically to the Reveil broadcast, we started in 2015 when Dawn was here for a collaborative sound-based residency, and she suggested that we do this, and for me it sounded great. And I wanted to pull in some local people, so my biologist friend and rather eminent sound recordist and sound specialist, Reveil is an Estonian biologist, and he runs a website called loodushelli.ee, which is naturesound.ee, and over the last, I guess, 15 years, he's meticulously collected as many possible species as he can, and in order to provide this as an information service for the public. And he's all around a great guy, and he's great to be with because he really, really tunes us in to really what we're hearing. And I'm not a biologist or a nature specialist, but actually in the few years I've gotten to know him, he's really helped me out. Actually, Grant, you're typing Lotus calendar, and this is actually a slightly different site.
Oh, I'm very sorry. When you get a chance, John, you can type it in for us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misheard you.
Lotusheli.ee.
Cool.
So, and yeah, I mean, and to understand a little bit about Estonia, it was big news, maybe roughly 10 years ago, when they did a survey of the forest and found out that 51% of the land was covered by forest, and that was the highest percentage in well over a century. So they realized that the land was wilding, and since then it's actually been part of, I guess, the national identity strategy and branding strategy of a country to promote itself as being very nature friendly and so on. There are, of course, a lot of exceptions, but in general, I really do appreciate the extent to which these wild forested lands offer, as far as varieties of soundscapes and being able to really come quite close and have direct contact with experiences here. And the location, Alampedia, this is one of the largest reserves. It's not far from the second city, Tartu. It's about an hour and a half drive from where I live, but it really is one of the largest reserves, and it's really a host to countless numbers of species, and it's a protected landscape. So, and I was very impressed by the ornithologists we met during the last Reveil broadcast, who were also staying in the cabin with us, that they easily rattled off 50 bird species they had identified in the last 3 days while they were staying there before us. So there's really an impressive array of wildlife there, which also extends to the mammal life, lots of moose, and then also the extensive frogs and so on that live there. And this time of year is quite specific there because one of the largest river systems in Estonia, the Emme-Jogi, the mother river as it's known, flows through there, and it floods extensively, up to several kilometers wide. So that also changes the whole dynamic of the ecosystem there for several months. So it simply is a great time to be there. So I really do appreciate the work of Grant and Dawn and Maria and others to really kind of get me involved in that. So yeah, and I guess coming out of this, I've been encouraged more and more by Grant and Dawn to try to establish some permanent streams here. I did actually contact Locus Sonus back in 2009, and I had a stream box running for some time, but it did prove to be problematic, so it was quite difficult to keep it running. So now I've been looking into the Pi system, and hopefully we'll be able to get one up this year. I have, besides Alampedia, I have also another location for another box that I'd like to get running. So hopefully you'll see us more permanently on the map.
Okay, fantastic. That's great. Thank you very much. We showed a little image of Alampeja there, and we're still actually in the background as you've been talking. The sounds of the dawn chorus have actually been building in Alampeja. I mean, it does. I've never been there. It sounds extraordinary. This is just to get a sense of what we're actually hearing. Okay, so this is not like a high definition recording made locally. This is a capture made in London of listening to the dawn chorus happening in Estonia. Okay, so what we lose in audio quality, we get in something else that's a little bit hard to define that we're sort of interested in talking about. So shall we go to another pause for translation summary? ¿Estás listo para traducir? ¿Es complicado o no? You want to do a summary? Yeah, it's good. That would be great. Are you going to do this one or are you going to do it together? Okay, great. Here's the microphone. Here you go. No funciona.
Bueno, en este momento nos habló un biólogo estadounidense, pero que reside en Estonia desde el 2003. Él menciona que la sensación de estar conectado con un medio natural para él es sorprendente, porque él ha experimentado varios lugares influenciados por la primavera, por la migración de aves y por el crecimiento del bosque. O sea, él dice que está preocupado por el incremento de los caudales, pues se preocupa por cómo este incremento puede afectar los bosques. Pues él mismo vio que en estos recursos, en estos medios ecológicos, encontraba no solo recursos ecológicos, sino recursos humanos y recursos acústicos. Por tanto, él menciona que un biólogo creó como que un sitio web para recolectar tantos sonidos de especies y tanta información sobre especies que encontraban en estos lugares para poder proveer información valiosa a un público que estaba interesado en la biología y en estos medios ecológicos. Él también dice que ese incremento de los caudales puede afectar demasiado los bosques de lluvia que hay en Estonia, y por eso mismo él se preocupa por proteger de cierta manera estos espacios, pues como él vio, estos proveían diversos recursos ecológicos, acústicos y humanos.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Okay, let me put this microphone on. Which webpage? I see. So John, can we later can we share that webpage, or could you just tell us what it is? Do you want to spell it out? Let's have a look here. We can have a look. It should be in the Hangout there. So look, guys, it's right here. lodershelly.ee. Have you got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So thank you very much, John. That's gracias. Okay, so from Estonia, let me take down this audio here. So from Estonia and the forests of Estonia, we're going to go now to Maria Papadomoulaki in London. Maria.
Hello. Let me know if you're listening, because I had problems with my connection and there's dropouts. Everything okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, so as Grant said, I'm one of the collaborators, one of the members of the SoundCamp collective. I am one of the people who also mix the 24-hour broadcast of Reveil in real time, experiencing in real time live sounds coming from all different sources and locations, and celebrating this fantastic loop that it's created every year. This is something that we aspire to do on an annual basis. But for this particular panel, we thought that perhaps I could talk a little bit about mobile streaming. Every year I launch and end the Reveil broadcast by going outside the shed where our temporary radio station is housed, walking around the ecological park and presenting the broadcast. This is actually a toolkit, a mobile streaming toolkit that I'm using a lot in my practice. It consists of a mobile streaming application which is called Locuscast, and it's been developed by the Locusonus lab in Aix-en-Provence. In fact, the sound map that we are also using to get access to the open microphone is also a project by Locusonus. So this particular lab is pretty much involved in developing and advocating live streaming. The Locustcast app is an open, freely downloadable piece of software that can be installed on a phone, and people can then either use the mobile phone's built-in microphone or additional external microphones to stream live sounds via the internet. I've been using this technology coming from a background influenced by the sound walking of Hildegard Westerkamp, by Luc Ferrari. Mostly interested in exploring these environments that can be found in the urban realm, mostly in cities, environments that combine the human and the non-human, as Grant also stated in his presentation. In a way, what I'm trying to do with the Locustcast app is to create these hybrid sound walks where the sonic materiality is explored by a multitude of places and the interplay of these places, spaces, the remote and the local, the internal and the external soundscapes. I believe that using the Locustcast allows that sort type of encounter to happen, this mixture of the local and the remote. And that also allows for a more, let's say, experiential way of listening, a more embodied, let's say, knowledge, as opposed to a more durational, observational and distant kind of listening activity. And this embodied knowledge is usually informed by the everyday movements and the multiple, let's say, fragmented perspectives that, as they occur and they emerge from the streaming. Another important element for me and for using that particular technology is that it allows me to use my voice as I do my sound walks, and also it allows me, it's very important to me when I do that, to actually be in conversation, in collaboration with my listeners, and collectively construct our listening experience. And that technology allows for that to happen, allows for my voice to be actually embedded within the environment rather than doing a more solitary, authoritative, let's say, voiceover. It's more like a voice that emerges from within, and this is something that also I try to do when I'm introducing the Reveil project every year. So these multiple perspectives also deal with a different kind of temporality as well. Using the live streaming allows for a temporality which is more focused on the present tense, on a memory that is constructed now rather than a reverse, a memory that references the past. And I think this is a very important observation and tactic, especially when it comes to this collective listening experience that I'm trying to attempt to construct. All these different elements fall into what I like to call in my practice as a sonic perceptual ecology, which combines the physical, geographical, ecological ecologies with, let's say, the more personal ecologies and the social aspect, the relational aspect of an ecology, kind of meshwork of interactions. I do believe from all the different instances of these live mobile sound walks that I've been doing and under different, let's say, environments and examples. For instance, I recently did a sound walk where I was streaming live sound from a park here in my neighborhood to a conference in Athens. And actually having this live sounds of my locality being listened to another location elsewhere opens up this space of ambiguity and encounters that allow this perplexity, this perplexed and complex ecology to happen, and people and have people actually thinking and listening in a way that they have not anticipated, and basically allowing people to understand their own possibilities as listeners, and basically advocating that we all have inherent possibilities and we don't need to be trained like all the time to be specialists to listen in a particular way. And within this kind of ecology, I welcome very much, and it's very important to think about personal backgrounds and experiences and how we can learn from each other. Grant said something about the birds migrating and carrying different voices of other birds and different songs from other birds, the global songbook. I think a similar thing happens with our own voices, with the way that we communicate. I think that it's important to let this dialogue to happen, to have this utterances. I like to use the word utterance for that, and have this dialogue and conversation allow us to see and to listen from different perspectives and learn from each other. And I think that this live streaming app and the mobility of it actually it's a perfect way of achieving all this in my projects. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Maria. That's excellent. I think what we might do now is just have what we should have is I might hand over the microphone again to our translator and sort of interpreter for a moment, just to go over what we've been talking about, and maybe we could take, if anyone has any questions, if the audience hasn't migrated, then we could take those now. Here you go. Thank you. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
Aquí la compañera de Gran, que ella es compañera del proyecto que está liderando Gran, nos comenta que ella anualmente está yendo a un parque natural que queda cerca de la vivienda de ella para poder hacer emisiones en vivo del medio ambiente, o sea, de la acústica que se puede encontrar en este medio, en este parque natural. También nos comenta una aplicación para poder hacer emisiones recurrentes acerca del medio acústico, la aplicación que se llama Locuscast. Ella dice que ha usado tecnología proveniente de varios contextos, que ella se ha estado llenando de nuevas tecnologías para poder mejorar esta aplicación. Porque ella se interesa en explorar varios medios que pueden como que alimentar más esta base de datos acústicos. Ella dice que estos medios se encuentran inclusive en las ciudades, que en las ciudades también se pueden encontrar lugares con poca contaminación acústica para poder hacer las emisiones que ella hace recurrentemente en la aplicación de Locuscast. Dice que esta aplicación permite una situación más real del mundo natural porque incluye el conocimiento cotidiano y el conocimiento ecológico que puede encontrar en estos lugares. También dice que otros elementos de esta tecnología usada por la aplicación y usada por el proyecto de Grant permite esquematizar como que de cierta manera varios campos, como son el campo ecológico, el campo físico y el geológico, y permite que estos interactúen entre sí para poder tener un resultado mucho más amplio, un resultado que llegue a varios contextos. También dice que cuando explora diferentes lugares, diferentes medios para poder hacer sus grabaciones, ella puede pensar tanto como en el parque que está cerca de su casa, como en un lugar muy lejano que tenga una una mayor pureza ecológicamente hablando. Y finalmente dice que esta base de datos le permite a ella no solo emitir la acústica de esos lugares, sino que también le permite interactuar con sus oyentes, con su público, y que también le permite a la gente entender varias posibilidades que ellos pueden lograr a través del sentido acústico, de que ellos a través de esos medios naturales pueden emplear su medio acústico y pueden llenarse más ecológicamente hablando.
Thank you very much. It's difficult to interpret. That was a great job. Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and I have a question for you. How do you choose or how do you select these places? What are the criteria for selecting a place and for you to say that this place is perfect for creating a broadcast?
Well, most of the different projects that I've done are because I was invited to respond to a particular location, and usually there's a particular way that I work with site-specific commissions. I do spend some time in the location, and I create a path, a trajectory, which I then try to use to perform my sound walk my live sound walk. So my answer is basically it all is relying to collaboration with other people who invite me to do a sound walk in a specific site, and then working for a week or more than a week within specific site, and trying to find interesting points within that site that can create a path for the live sound walk.
That's really useful. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to play a little clip here. So our next contributor is Dawn Scarfe, whose practice is also a very important part of SoundCamp, of which she's a member. This clip is from a project in which Dawn has gone out often on her own into forests in England and spent the night and sent a live audio stream from the forest to the internet. And I'll let Dawn say some more about that, including, Dawn, if you want me to, turn off the audio or anything, just let me know.
Yeah, I can. If you want to have that in the background, that's fine for me. So hello, and thanks for having me on the panel. I wonder if I can attempt to share my screen as well, or if that's going to really mess things up.
Let me just let me unshare my screen. Do you give me a minute?
Yeah.
We don't have a battle of the screens here. Screen share. I think that might have stopped it.
Okay, we'll see.
Why don't you try now?
Yeah, so it's mainly just so I can point you to a slightly bigger image of what I think Grant was showing before. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the project that first got me interested in using live streaming, because I guess my background is in sound installations for galleries, but also working in a site-specific sense, working with sound as a kind of sculptural material, working with multiple speakers and sampling the sounds of a place, and then going away and working with those sounds into a kind of composition and then playing them back into the space. So I guess the intention with those works is to work with a kind of live atmosphere by drawing out particular tonalities and textures, and sort of layering that over the live, sometimes having speakers that move to exploit the sort of Doppler effect and other things that happen when you have things moving in the wind, or working with aeolian harps and other kinds of instruments. And basically back in 2012, I had an opportunity to work as artist in residence across the forests of England with the Forestry Commission, which was very timely because I just spent about a year writing up a thesis. So spent a lot of time indoors in my own head, and I really had a big impulse to, get out into the world again and just basically see what happened. So this was a great incentive to do so. And yeah, really what I want to talk about for this whole presentation is just really the impulse to go outside and listen. Because I started with that. I didn't start with the wanting to stream, but it kind of happened as a consequence of this kind of method that I developed, which I made a little publication as well as a kind of introduction to this kind of thing. So I set a certain amount of principles for myself, which is kind of like a performance score or something, is how I think of it. So the criteria was that, I'd go somewhere that I hadn't been to before, a forest that was completely unknown to me, arrive sometime in the evening, and then sleep out overnight. And once I'd done this a few times, I really had this impulse to share those sounds that were happening while I was sleeping, because it was quite a sort of intense experience for me, being a sort of city dweller for the most of my life. So even though, the forests of England are very different to the forests of Estonia, as I sort of discovered, there's no gigantic animals sort of waiting to sort of come and terrorize you in the night. The scariest thing is probably coming across another person sort of doing something untoward. But still, somehow, when you're in the darkness, and the darkness does set in quite earlier than you used to with all these sort of familiar electric devices that you have at home, and you're sort of there intensely listening. And I think it doesn't matter if there are sort of tigers or whatever out there, you sort of, for me at least, instinctively latch onto these tiny sounds of rustling leaves, or as if your sort of life depended on it in a way. And it's quite interesting for me to find links to ways of listening, by experimental composers. I think I have a quote here from Alvin Lucia, which I found afterwards, but it really did kind of sum up this kind of listening that I discovered in the forest, in the very tame, unintimidating forests of England. I really felt like I was listening in the same way that Lucia describes here, as sort of, really listening for something, as if you're on this very high level of attentiveness that you just don't get when you're listening to a sort of field recording or something. So it was definitely being there in the live was a very important thing for me. And it was interesting to hear John's memory of when me and Jiyeon went out to listen in Estonia, because yes, it's true, it was a very quiet time of year, but actually in the process of doing it wasn't technically a bivvy in Estonia, we had a nice wood hut to retreat to, but the sounds there were still amazing for me, the sort of patterns that you noticed after having sort of done this a few times, like how around about 11 o'clock, the sounds of roads, even if they're quite far away, they'll be a lot more prominent, probably due to sort of temperature inversion, the sounds traveling further than they would do at other times of day. So yeah, even though, again, there weren't like moose or wolves that I noticed, there were sort of dogs and things like that, still it was really interesting for me to hear kind of the trucks. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you can still experience this sense of wilderness with sort of the unfamiliar sounds of sort of human activity. There's something about being in that kind of non-domestic environment that makes everything seem, I don't know, somehow more urgent and intriguing and wild than it would do if you were sort of listening in a safe position at home. So I don't want to sort of dwell for too long because I know we've got some other kind of very interesting speakers coming up, but maybe just to make the point that why the streaming thing made sense to me is because, again, in this position, which I felt was kind of a vulnerable position in the darkness, sort of listening quite frantically through the night, waiting for the morning to come again, when all of this kind of anxiety would tend to disappear with the light, and typically the birds also, is just when you're in that kind of feeling of being surrounded by unfamiliar things in a place you don't know, the sort of natural inclination is to sort of reach out to other people somehow. I mean, either for your own kind of sanity and safety, or just to kind of share the experience. So I guess I was interested in sending out to kind of signal and hoping that someone else would pick it up somewhere else, like in safer domestic surroundings. And because these were long broadcasts, they went from 11 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning. My hope was that people, certainly in the same time zone, might listen through the night, so in an almost sort of unconscious way. And in fact, a few people, like Tomomi, for example, managed to do this and suggested that the sort of creaking of trees and stuff influenced the kind of dreams they were having, and I was really interested in that as a kind of way of connecting with a piece. So it's not like I was in the forest, anxiously listening to every little leaf and thinking it was some badger coming to get me, but more, in a unconscious kind of way, just picking up on these sounds of the environment, like how is that going to affect people sleeping in this kind of domestic familiar place, but with the sounds of a very unknown place, because that's another thing. I didn't ever advertise the location because partly out of concerns for just not having some lunatic going to come and find me while I'm sleeping there. Is this a good place to leave it, Grant? I think maybe.
Yeah, because that's actually a really kind of lovely evocation of that whole project, which it's very nice to hear it, and there was a lot of appreciation for the fur trapping experience as well in the catalogue. So I'm gonna shall I hand over to the translation team again here for a minute, or are you getting tired? Yeah, we can move on. We can move on. Okay, fine. So we're going to have a very brief interpretation translation, and then we're going to go to Zach from upstate New York.
Okay.
Here you go.
Sí, aquí ella nos comenta su experiencia personal. Primero hace una diferenciación entre los bosques de Inglaterra y los bosques de Estonia. Dice que los bosques de Inglaterra son un poco más pequeños y un poco más... sí, son menos densos que los bosques de Estonia, porque en Estonia incluso hay animales mucho más grandes que en Inglaterra. Sí, sí. También menciona que en los bosques de Estonia se puede experimentar la sensación de oscuridad, y que para ella es una sensación que va como que entre el peligro y entre lo placentero, ¿no? Porque ella de por sí como que ve una muy buena oportunidad en la oscuridad. Por eso mismo ella habla de las emisiones que hace entre 11 y 7, que aunque son emisiones muy largas, son emisiones que le permiten al oyente y también a ella experimentar sensaciones acústicas nuevas y diferentes, porque en las otras emisiones se pueden apreciar sonidos que escuchan únicamente de día, mientras que en esas emisiones hechas por la noche se pueden experimentar otros sonidos. Aquí también daba el ejemplo de, bueno, no lo dijo, pero pues yo lo alcancé a leer aquí en la pantalla, cuando dice que le gustaría ser uno de los cazadores de piel del siglo XIX, que porque ellos tenían un catálogo acústico, un catálogo de sonidos con el cual se guiaban. Y por eso mismo menciona lo de la noche, que si ellos escuchan un sonido como que no está en su catálogo acústico, ellos lo pueden apropiar y pensar por qué ese sonido está sucediendo en ese momento. Ah, sí.
¿Lo hago yo? Ok, ella nos está hablando de su experiencia personal. Ella dice que se pasó a cerca de un año sin salir en estas emisiones desde una tienda, y es por eso que ella habla de la experiencia como tal que tiene en el bosque. Y sí, entonces sí, los vi broadcast. Y entonces, nada, ella habló todo este rato de cómo se sintió, de cómo fue para ella la experiencia, de la oscuridad, como ya lo habíamos mencionado, el entorno, el bosque como tal. Ya.
Muchas gracias. That's great. Thank you very much. It's difficult to take in all the details. Just checking these levels. Okay, so thank you very much, Dawn. And we're gonna so we got up a new picture here, and I'm gonna play some sounds. Okay, so this is to set the scene for Zach Poff. So we're in upstate New York, and this is what we're seeing here, right? I just love this, actually, this stream, Zach. I mean, I do want to hear what you have to say, but I am tempted just to, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit.
I'll be brief.
So Zach, it's all yours.
Okay, so what you were just listening to was part of the stream from a platform for monitoring the hidden activity of a pond in upstate New York. It's
and I'm actually gonna cut in and just say, because I didn't say, Zach, I'm really sorry. This is live now, so we are listening to the sounds of this pond now. This is not a recording. Okay, sorry, Zach, on you go.
Sure. So that is about 2.5 hours north of New York City. And this is a floating sculpture that sits on top of the water. It has solar panels and batteries in it. It's completely autonomous. It's anchored to the bottom, but it has no connection, physical connection to electricity or anything else. And coming off the bottom under the water are homemade hydrophones, underwater microphones, that are very close to the bottom of the pond itself, where the mud is and the base of a lot of the plants. And so what this does is it just transmits through a short radio link to a nearby building. And in the building there is one of the Raspberry Pi stream boxes that's been mentioned before. And that little box creates the live web stream that you were just listening to in the intro. So all day, as long as the sun is shining, the system turns on in the morning. It broadcasts these underwater sounds during the day. Then at night, there are lights that turn on, and there are sensors built into it that translate the vibrations of light, the changes in light patterns, into sounds. And that picks up a lot of the vibrations of insect wings and things like that. So it does not hear, or it does not transmit any of the acoustic sounds above the water, except for those that leak through the water and get into the hydrophones on the bottom. I got interested in this because I've always done a lot of sort of media and artwork based on patterns, based on emergence. I've been trying to sort of model systems, complicated systems, and I would do it with computer software, I would do it with sounds and synthesizers, and basically trying to emulate some of the very complex patterns of nature. And this is a project where I just wanted to get straight in to nature itself, to put my head under the water in a place that I was not allowed to be. Grant mentioned before the sort of interface between human and non-human places, and non-human and non-human sounds. And this is one of those places that humans can't really go. Even if we did put our head under the water that far, our ears wouldn't work very well. The hydrophones hear better than our ears would. So I really wanted to explore this stuff and then to be able to share it. And so when I got the opportunity through an organization called Wave Farm to do a residency there, I started working on this piece a few years ago. It's gone through a number of iterations to get where it is now, and now it's pretty stable. It's not going to sink into the water as far as I can tell. But I got interested in some of this from the work of other people involved in acoustic ecology. So that there's a David Dunn CD with a track on it called Chaos and the Emergent Mind of the Pond. And it's a very similar sound to what you just heard from that live stream. And in this case, he's layering a bunch of hydrophone recordings that he had made in a few different ponds around the world. And what you hear are these, what I would consider these sort of polyrhythmic, percussive sounds for the most part. It's not always the most pitched information. A lot of it is mostly in the realm of rhythm. And what you're hearing is the individual activity of thousands and thousands of little creatures, invertebrates, insects, the bubbling of oxygen as it comes off of some of the underwater plants. So there's a tremendous amount of variation across the seasons and, of course, during a single day. So when it first starts in the morning, there's very little activity because there's very little sun. And then as the pond warms up, as the plants begin to photosynthesize, they release more oxygen. You hear more of these rhythmic bubbling events. And sometimes you'll hear all kinds of creatures down there making moaning noises and sort of tearing sounds. Some of it actually gets very pitched. You'll hear these sounds that people say sound like synthesis. You know, I've gotten emails from people that say, I don't believe that this is natural sound. You must be getting in there with, like, you know, synthesizers and drum machines, but that's not the case. It's just the sound under the water. And so for me, it's very exciting to hear these things, to incorporate them into my own work, to make it available as a resource for other people. At Wave Farm, where this is installed, they have an FM radio station that does arts programming, and sometimes they include the live feed from Pond Station into their routines, into their shows. They have resident artists come in, like I was, and other people have used Pond Station's sounds to build other compositions with. There was a flute player who did a shakuhachi flute piece based on, it was essentially a duet with the sounds of the underwater life of the pond. And I really like the idea that these are sounds that if we were to try to enter that pond in an effort to hear them, they would almost instantly stop. It's not a sound that we can participate in. It's strictly an observational thing. And yet there are human sounds that leak in, maybe similar to what Dawn was saying about the sounds that you hear in the context of one of those sort of bivvy overnight adventures. Even the human sounds take on a certain quality that is a little bit alien. It's changed by the context of your listening. And so one of the sounds that I hear all the time in the Pond Station stream are road traffic vibrating the ground itself. So we hear sounds of trucks going by on a street that's a few hundred meters from the location of the hydrophones. And it vibrates the whole earth enough that you hear this low-frequency rumble. And it's actually, I think, quite beautiful the way it interacts. Sometimes you can hear the creatures in the pond stopping and starting based on some of the interference that they're receiving from the road. And so just to wrap it up, this whole piece 2 years ago was finished just in time to debut on Reveil. So Reveil was both a sort of driver of getting this piece done, and at the same time served as a real milestone for me to be able to share this work that I had been working on and trying to make this thing go and trying to mine this archive, this unending archive of sound, trying to share that with people. And so Reveil happened, I found out about it at just the moment when it was available to become this platform for sharing these sounds that otherwise would have to be recorded or locked away somewhere, very difficult to share. So I think that one great thing about having a live stream like this is that it invites collaboration. So one thing that we're always looking for is to try to identify some of these sounds. I'm not a biologist. I've worked with some biologists to help identify some of these sounds. There's a certain tadpole that's known to make a lot of noise at certain stages of its development, and we may have found some of those down there. But it's a wonderful tool at having it on the Locus Sonus sound map, because when I do find people who can help, and any of you out there are welcome to help, we can share this information very easily because it's just on all the time. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, that was great, Zach. Kind of amazing insight into what's going on, and it's really nice to be able to kind of see the object floating there on the surface and hear your voice, and also have the thing going. And just after you mentioned the trucks going by, a truck went by, and another one's going by right now. So it's all coming together. Thank you very much. That was great. So I just take this opportunity to say thank you to the other panelists who are waiting. I know that we're running behind, and for reasons to some extent outside our control, we will try to kind of speed things along here. But thank you very much for your patience. Okay, so we're gonna change. Are we gonna have a translation response on that? I think we should. You have only 10 minutes before you have to go. Before I have 10 minutes left. In that case, we're going to skip the translations and move on. Here we go. Okay, so moving along now. We're very, very happy to have with us Shimotoko Daisuke of the Cyber Forest program at the University of Tokyo. This program has been a real kind of inspiration to us, and is a key kind of point of reference when we talk about the potential of the live audio archive. And I'm just setting the scene a little bit for Daisuke with a live stream here from Nagano, excuse me, in Otonomo. And so this is live from a forest setting in Japan.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Daisuke Shimotoko of the Cyber Forest project. Today I'd like to introduce about our project Cyber Forest program. And first of all, I'd like to share today's dawn sound from the Nagano, 150 kilometers northwest of Tokyo, Japan. Do you hear well?
Yes, we heard that. It was like a really quite loud sort of bird whistle.
Great. Unfortunately, this part didn't sing as well as usual because there was a shower, and unfortunately, it's a live sound, so this can happen. The Cyber Forest project aims to provide sounds and images from nature through the internet to encourage citizens to be more acquainted with the global environment. With these sounds made available in the internet, people ubiquitously can enjoy the sounds from virgin nature, and in the school, teachers utilize these resources for an environmental education at ease, decreasing the chance for children to be close to the nature. Our project can compensating these chances. Furthermore, employing a worldwide distributed open mic network, people can intuitively perceive not only the circumstances nearby of a mic, but also the circumstances of the globe. This idea, sensing the whole globe to realize the environmental, is named the sense of globe by my supervisor, Professor Carl Saito. Our objective are not to prove that by encouraging people to have the sense of globe, helping them to recognize the environmental issues without any difficult mathematics or sciences. In short, we aim that let people to have the sense of globe, and that will change the society. To achieve these purposes, we have set up 8 monitoring sites throughout Japan. Some of them shown in circles operate 24 hours, and others shown in stars are not. However, all of sounds and images taken in these sites are live streamed and archived under Creative Commons license to promote science through the network or citizen science. For instance, thanks to the cooperation of NGO Bird Research, in this season, the monitoring of birds are conducted using our resources, and that results timely publicized in the Twitter. This is a Twitter log when a woodpecker picked a wood. At 7 a.m., Carl tweeted that Teto site is quite active with woodpeckers drumming. At that time, number of listeners increased from 14 to 90 in 20 minutes. As this fact shows, with using Twitter or SNS services, the natural sounds can attract people. In addition to that, we extended our project into the field of education and human-computer interface. In the field of education, Dr. Nakamura and others created this site to show the annual changes of the bloom date of cherry blossom species Planus velecunda since the year 1996. Students can find the full bloom date varies in year and appears to be trendless. Thus, they acquire that only a longer-term observation is required to discuss climatic change, such as global warming, and objective viewpoint is quite important in this subject. Furthermore, when they get old and have grandchildren, those ex-students can talk about the forest they visited and its transition to their grandchildren with archived sound and images. And we think this is amazing. For this season, we are archiving the images and sounds, aiming to produce a new conserving excellence like the World Heritages. In the field of human-computer interface, to deliver our cyber forest product in your daily life, a product Moride model is fabricated. As you can see, this product Moride model is a window-like device. When a user opens the cover and the front window, a live stream sound will flow from the inside. In the inside, an iPad displays the live image of a cyber forest observation site. Hence, the users can experience the live sound and the brightness by opening the glass window, being implied for a real window. With putting this product in your living room, live sound is introduced into your daily life. And And this is my product, Moritouch. This is under development. However, this is designed to acquire these all station circumstances at once. This product, Moritouch, is a box-like device that transmits sounds from all sides, sounds and vibration at once. Not only the sounds, as we are difficult to hear the sounds less than 1,000 Hz, those low frequency sounds are transmitted by the tactile device, this white device, as the haptic sense. Thus, you can touch and sense the low frequency part of the sounds and hear the higher part. By rubbing over the surface, the user can feel what side is most active, and the synchronization sounds. The sound from chosen side emphasize, like the cocktail party effect, to enrich their environmental experience. And this application, Cyber Forest Map, this is an iPad application that displays time-lapse movies at once. By using iPad, users can recognize the day of Japan more handy than that of using web browser in computer. The application consists image recognition that helps user to share the most favorite image with Twitter, so that they can interact through the social networking service about an environmental image. Enjoying a content by themselves is really fun, and Moritouch, the first two devices, and sharing what they feel is more enjoyable using this Cyber Forest Map. Honestly speaking, live sounds does not contain so many attractive scenes, and we cannot listen to them 24 hours a day. So we can, though these technologies, we can face beautiful nature. So by creating these technologies, I want to share the chance of finding. So in conclusion, our objective is let citizens to have the mind of sense of globe, the mind that you can sense the globes through images or sound, and that you are connected to the others. To accomplish this objective, we have fabricated products, created educational modules, and maintain live streaming and database openly. With using these materials, people can recognize the circumstances of the globe interestingly. That will improve the society. Finally, I'd like to advertise that we are planning to hold the International Conference Sense of Globe 2016 on the 3rd to 4th of June in our campus. Is shown in this slide will be exhibited there. And about the Sense of Globe conference, it is in the details is described in the website http://conference2016.cyberforest.jp. Thank you. Gracias.
Hey, gracias, Daisuke. That was great. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful project, and thanks very much for sharing it with us. SoundCamp are doing a keynote at Sense of Globe conference, which we're really looking forward to, as you know. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, Daisuke.
Thank you.
So our next participant is Jiyeon Kim, and I have particularly fond memories of listening to a live stream by Jiyeon Kim and her partner and co-worker Gang Il Yi from Jeju Island in South Korea.
Should I start?
That would be great. I'm just playing.
Okay.
Let me just say I'm
Mm.
playing some sounds from
Okay.
from the Project Radio broadcast that you did in Leeds when you and Gangi, you were kind of I think you were wandering around in the dark. If you want me
Yeah.
to stop them, I can stop them. Just tell me.
Okay.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you can play
Cool.
them while I'm talking. Yeah.
Cool. Let's do it.
Hello. Yeah. My name is Jiyeon Kim, and my partner Kang Lee is with me right now, and I'm talking today on behalf of us. A little bit of introduction on me and Kang Il. I've been working with mainly sound composition and music making, largely based on and inspired by recordings from environment. And Kang Il, he loves programming basically, and he likes using technologies in an unusual way. My first exposure to live streaming and experience of sleeping outside while listening was with Don Scarfe in Estonia back in 2013, as John and Don said earlier. At the time, it was unfamiliar for me taking long form recording and streaming real time, but it was definitely a very attractive experience. And one of the strong memory that I had was Don put the recorder outside of the cabin and left that throughout the night, and then record hours of recording, and next day should listen to them throughout and make notes. It was kind of a strong memory for me, but it was later 2014 when I tried to try it by myself. Me and Kang first started to build streamer, Raspberry Pi based streamer with support from Grant and Don when I was living in Seoul City at the time. We had much fun with building streamer, but it was a bit cautious to actually put the mic from at the place where I was living, because in Seoul houses and buildings are so closely spaced, so it feels a bit unsafe, or it could provoke private a privacy breaking issue thing. So it was fun experience to build the streamer, but I couldn't really find a use for that. So it was actually last year, 2015, when we started to use the streamer last year, because we moved out of Seoul and moved down to Jeju Island, so we participated in SoundCamp in 2015 and 16 from Jeju, I was quite unfamiliar with the environment here, so streaming sounds was good kind of way for me to explore the environment by myself as well. And I think one of excellent aspects of SoundCamp and the open mic network map Locus Sonus project as live audio archive project is that it doesn't fix certain sounds to a certain place. It let us realize that environmental sound is actually moving and changing like air. But it's very easy to have illusion when I'm doing recording. Then I could easily think of some sounds linking to a specific place and just fix the sound to a specific place. But SoundCamp experience made me remind me of sound as something happening now and changing. So I think in most of existing sound map project engaging with discourse of sound and place in form of online map didn't achieve that. So I think SoundCamp and Local Sonus is pretty special. And I'd like to talk a little bit about my personal streaming project from last year. As I said earlier, I just moved to this island last year, and weather is very, very changeable in this island. Wind is very impressively hard, and rain is very often. And birds and bees and insects, they all become very seasonal, sonic cuttons. So it didn't take a long time for me to realize that observing weather is one of advantage of living in this island. So from the end of August until December last year, I've been regularly streaming recorded environmental sounds and sometimes live sounds once a week. And so I put the mic outside of my window and mixing with prepared materials, improvising musical instruments based on inspirations from weather conditions here. For me, it was interesting to have feedback from people who listened to the streaming live, or in many cases of listening later as downloaded. They found the streaming very meditative. I found that interesting. Many listeners are living in city, and so I think listening to sounds of rain, wind, insects, birds for over half an hour are becoming something meditative for them. I was also told that they enjoy listening to them before they go to bed, or when they work on something. My feeling was that people are influenced by their preconception of what they think they know about the place, or their perception of listening are also shaped by or different backgrounds of people have, or shaped by where they are listening, or what kinds of situation they are listening. Even the material the same, they take that all differently. Personally, the impact of engaging with streaming, this kind of streaming activities on me, was a sense of tuning in the world through sound. Because when I was working with recorded sound, I think I didn't really have the sense. I was more occupied with how to get the texture that I want to use for music making, for example. But streaming sound brings a different sense, I think. So these days, I'm approaching to live audio as a resource to practice my improvising music, responding to the sound of the world. So these days, I'm often visiting Locus Sona's website and listen to open mics from places and write down what's happening for a certain time of period, for example. And it's like a piece of life unfolding in front of me, and I'm practicing my musical instrument while I'm listening to the sounds. I personally call my improvising practice as a transparent music, and I'm preparing a little concert next year in Seoul with this kind of idea. So yeah, that's the big kind of thing which streaming sound activity brought to me, I think. Yeah, so that's for now.
Thank you, Jiyeon,
Yeah.
and also Gangil in the background. That's a great kind of insight into your practice, and it's really nice to hear the way that, like the live streaming kind of weaves into all these different bits and pieces of things you're exploring. I love the idea of transparent music. Okay, so we're all still here in Manizales, in Colombia, and we are coming towards the end of this. We have a couple more speakers. I want to thank both the audience and participants for sticking with a kind of long broadcast. I'm sitting here with Eric Leonardson of the World Listening Project, so I'm just gonna, without further ado, just swing the microphone over to him. Eric.
Thank you, Grant. Hello, everyone. Grant invited me to talk about the piece that I created for the SoundCamp, or for the SoundCamp, actually last year. Although my stream at Chicago Camp Sherwin is still going on now, so it was still live when the recent SoundCamp events happened this year, just a couple weeks ago. So a little bit of history about my contribution. Well, going way back, I started using the Locus Stream sound map when I met Jérôme Joie and Peter Sinclair in 2008. This is around the time when the World Listening Project was getting started, and it was my hope that the World Listening Project could be a way to encourage others to populate the sound map with their own streams. And later I gave a talk about the World Listening Project and the Locus Stream sound map in 2009 at a retreat for the Canadian Association for Sound Ecology. And we had a really interesting discussion, actually raising some of the problematics of these location-based microphones. And there's an archive of that discussion if you go to the website of the Canadian Association for Sound Ecology. And so I had a stream going from Chicago, and then it had to be shut down. And then in 2015, I was invited to collaborate and create a piece for Radius, which is a Chicago-based platform for experimental radio. And I've been interested in radio for a very long time, and I think radio and transmission art have been, well, maybe transmission art is really the more appropriate term, because now we're creating radio in so many diverse ways because of the changes in the technology and so forth. So, so Jeff Kolar is the person who runs Radius, and he wondered if I would like to do something for the International Dawn Chorus and the SoundCamp event. And because of my interest in the stream, in radio, and field recording, it seemed like a really ideal opportunity. And then I took it up. And so what I created was the sound tent at Camp Sherwin, and some of my interest is in acoustic ecology, soundscape awareness, particularly in environments where I live, which is in an urban environment, and also public engagement with the soundscape, and some questions about critical citizenship, you might call it. And so because of the particularities of where I live, I was able to set up a situation where I can invite people, some of them part of the Midwest Society for Acoustic Ecology, to come and join my sound tent, which was just an open area, a small park area right on the shore of Lake Michigan, and join me for the Dawn Chorus. And Jeff set up a micro transmitter so we could transmit on a 88.9, I think it was, FM. So if anyone happened to tune in to that frequency at the time, they would hear the sounds that we were transmitting on FM radio from there. And I also recorded it at the same time. I don't know if you can see the images, but there's we had some pinhole cameras and other ones that Key Lewis provided us. So there's some shots of the scene where we were set up on the beach. It was kind of a gravelly, large stones mixed with sand, and so we had a good number of people that came out, and I was really happy about that. I was also happy that the weather had broken, because previous to that week it had been windy and cold and just very harsh, and those weather conditions had just broken. And so a lot of what I'm doing here seems to do with events that you can't control, you know, the weather, other people's actions, and so it was just fortuitous that it came together the way it did. And so we had a group of people, and for over an hour we were out there watching the sunrise over the horizon in the east, looking eastward as the sun came up, and birds were out. There was a flock of terns that were very active and doing some amazing things. And for me, that was one of my own personal discoveries. Is I had never seen these birds at the shore before. I've only been living at this location, in fact, for a short while. So I'm still learning about this particular part of the city. And so they were, you know, making these fantastic, scratchy cat-like sounds and diving headfirst into the water. And so the scene with the sun rising and the sounds of the waves lapping up, and people walking around and conversing, all of that was transmitted live and then recorded, in fact. And so that became my contribution to the Radius series of broadcasts. So if anyone is interested in going to the Radius website and looking for episode 63, you can listen to an hour-long recording of that event. And because of the sound of the lake, the water is kind of calm water, and people having friendly conversations, and the footsteps on the rocks, and little bits of laughter, and the birds coming and going. Yeah, so you get a sense, I think, of a kind of social event, a kind of a community that formed around this radio transmission. And it was Jeff Kollar's observation that here's an example of how radio brings a community together, and it's a community in sound, and it's a community of human and natural soundscapes, where there is no distinction between natural or human. They're all part of one soundscape, in fact. So I think that's made clear through the listening of that event, and if you're able to go to that location, or if you just go to the live stream now. So Yeah, so that's basically what happened there. I think some of the challenges with setting up the stream are partly technical. I had a lot to learn. I started using a Raspberry Pi interface, and I didn't know how to set that up, but I got a lot of help from friends like Grego Drobanak and Grant Smith. And other challenges might be sort of social. Jiyeon made some really great points about. I love the transparent music term that she used. That's really great. Thank you for saying that. And also, the fact that you position this microphone in places where, if there are human activities, you might be picking up and transmitting conversations without other people being knowledgeable of that. And you can run into some. It can be intrusive in terms of privacy and things. So it's challenging because sometimes you have to be tethered to an internet connection and interface, and you just can't throw it out in the woods or away from electricity. So it would be good, and I'm sure others. It seemed obviously Zach has surmounted that obstacle with solar panels and so on. So he's not tethered to the power grid. So I was inspired to see that. So yeah, so there are solutions for some of these things I'm learning about just as we're doing this panel. So it's really great. Maybe since we're running over time, I should just wrap it up with that.
Perfect. Thank you very much to Eric Leonardson from the World Listening Project. That's great. Since it is running late, well, I think a fitting place to stop is going to be kind of where we started, which is with Leah Barkley, who's led on sort of putting this panel together as well as the previous panel. So she definitely sort of like out there for just like hanging in there for the long haul. Leah, are you still with us?
I am, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you really well, and kind of thank you in advance. Maybe you can, maybe you almost want to sort of wrap up from what you from where you've heard from your side, whatever you think would make sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I won't talk for very long. I was going to talk briefly a little bit about Biosphere Soundscapes, and I might just reflect very briefly on that if that's okay. But firstly, thank you to SoundCamp and the work that you've put into this. This has been a really inspiring panel, and your work in general is, really fascinating and I think quite pivotal in the world of live streaming audio. So just a kind of two-sentence background from my perspective with Biosphere Soundscapes. So we are running this project called Biosphere Soundscapes, which many of you may have heard about at the conference anyway. We've had a paper there, and we are exploring the possibilities of live streaming audio in this project, but in a relatively new way and in collaboration with SoundCamp. So it's something we've always been interested in, but not something we've really attempted to do at a large scale. But having met Grant and the SoundCamp team at Balance Unbalance last year, we began the process of really exploring the possibilities. But in our sister project, Reveil Listing, we've been working with live streaming hydrophones for close to a decade now for creative work streaming into installations, and we're really now starting to explore the potential of those hydrophones in how they can connect to Biosphere Soundscapes and the global network. So we're really interested in adding as many more dots as possible onto that map from biosphere reserves across the world, and also looking at ways that we can connect the dots with more collaborations. And so I think the creative and scientific possibilities of working with live streaming audio is really incredible and rich at the moment, and we've heard that from all the presentations this morning. And the potential of things like from ecological accountability in rainforests to network performances and the sound walking ideas that we've heard about. And as this technology becomes more accessible, which it obviously is now, and collaborations like SoundCamp continue to evolve, and obviously the Raspberry Pi stream boxes is pretty game changing in terms of making this accessible in regional and remote areas. I really think there's some exciting times ahead for live streaming audio, and I think there's quite a rich and tangible thing with the live streams as well, that for myself as an artist, I'm not really sure how to describe it yet, but I certainly find that when I click on any of the live streams, there's this you know, very magic and addictive somewhat characteristic that you just can't stop listening, particularly with that hydrophone stream in Hawaii with the humpback whales and many of the other streams that have been pushed through SoundCamp. So I think there's some really exciting research potential there as well, and this idea of, you know, being able to be present in another environment in real time has incredible potential. So yeah, I'm really excited as to what the future holds for SoundCamp, and hopefully collaborating with you all in the future. And thank you again very much for putting this panel together. It's been really fascinating, and I'm honoured to be part of it all. So as I said, I wanted to keep it very short because I know we're over time, so I might hand it back to you, Grant.
Leah, that's perfect. Thank you very much, and thanks again, you know, for your collaboration on putting it all together. So I'm going to go through the motions of asking people if they have any final kind of comments and so forth. But we are running kind of late, so let me put that question. If there's anyone, Maria, are you still with us? Do you have thoughts on ways to finish? Otherwise, I will simply.
No, you can wrap it up any way you wish.
Great. Okay, great. So I'll just say that, I mean, it is kind of amazing to listen to the. We said it was going to be different perspectives and experiences, and it is actually a very rich, very kind of rich palette of those things. It's been great actually working with everyone, you know, who's taken part in this panel, and I should just say, you know, a big thank you to everyone who's been on it. Also to the technical team here at Balance Unbalance who've really helped us kind of set the panels up, which is meant to be easy and isn't. And so let's maybe pull the plug on the broadcast, and good night or good morning to you, Leah, and thank you very much. Bye then.
Thank you. Bye.